Have you heard about J-setting?
I've heard about J-setting, but the thing is, do you know how to J-set?
Do I? I mean, do you? We're going to find out right now. Welcome to the Daily Dose. I am so excited to have you here. I want to do a big old shout out to our sponsor. First of all, ahf.org. AHF is the great place to go for your gay healthcare needs. They will take care of you. Even if it's financially difficult for you, they have programs to help you. So reach out to them, ahf.org. We've got Fr3der Taylor on, yes?
Yes.
And we are talking all things Frederick today. Frederick, if you don't know him, he is here in the Atlanta area. He actually created Tomorrow Pictures, has several different pieces he's put together, and actually has a couple Emmys, which is quite a wonderful thing. I want to start off, I mean it is, let's be honest.
It gets you into the club.
It gets you in the club. Well, I'm not in the club yet. But I'm going to ask him first off, just how do you identify and what drew you to what draws you most to the gay community?
I identify as a straight male.
Yes, straight male. Yes, straight ally.
I know, exact straight ally. And I'm very proud of that as well. And what has drawn me into the gay community is I have an uncle, or had an uncle, I should say. My mother's brother was gay and a big part of the LGBTQ community as well. He was an artist, he was a dancer, he was a teacher, and unfortunately he passed away prematurely because of HIV. He was about 10 years younger than my mother and about 10 years older than me, so he was kind of my big brother.
Yeah.
So my whole construct of my male role model was a gay man.
Oh, wow.
So I have a tremendous taste in music and clothing and fashion, and have awesome etiquette in public as well. So I'm often mistaken for a gay man too, which I find to be sort of fascinating. And as I continue to go through life, I'm very proud of it as well. I don't think it's anything to be ashamed of, and I kind of take it as a compliment and a badge of honor. It says that I am coming off as intelligent and articulate, and as someone who is solution-based as well. And I find it to be fascinating, and it also creates conversation and discourse as far as behavior of men, and specific to African American men as well. At times I can be a bit of a lightning rod when it comes to my sexuality or what my sexuality is and things like that. And as we all know, we are who we are. You know, we can't be anything that we're not, and I just happen to be just straight.
Well, let's be clear, but you're straight and you're woke in many regards. And we have a guy on our show, Mike, who is also a straight black ally. And there is something very special about your kind, I believe, because there is that really beautiful, I don't know, there's something really amazing about a cultured man who can embrace their own sexuality and be strong enough to stand next to the gay movement and really embrace it and make it part of their own without losing their own. That's hot. As a person, as a human, that's just a hot quality.
It opens up the universe for you. You see more, you get more, you understand more, you learn more, you're more creative, you're capable of love on a greater and more profound level as well. You also have a greater diaspora of men in your life as well. And it makes you more distinguished, I think. And those things are important as you move through life as a man.
It's a very evolved state, actually.
Agreed. And it's unfortunate when you're young, you know, you're brutalized for that kind of stuff. So very early in life, I started to spend more time around some of the gay males than the straight males because of that dynamic. You know, that I had more in common. I identified more, and we did a lot of the same things together, and it was always interesting, and I would always learn, and I became a better person for it, and certainly a better artist for it as well. And like I said, sexual orientation, that's just whatever you are. That's your thing. That's your inside internal drive, and you know, nobody can really get in there and control that for you because you always know your truth And so, I've really worked hard to live in my truth. So the truth is that, I'm straight male, but at the same time, I'm very comfortable being around people who are not straight.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't say it like that.
I know, it sounds so horrible.
I was gonna say you lucked out in a way. I think you got a gay role model that was older than you and was able to shepherd you through some stuff. I think I'm sorry that you lost him early, but I'm very glad for the product.
Me too. He was the person that I would sit up late. We used to live at my grandmother's house, and I know I drove him crazy because he was, late teens in, moving in his early 20s, and he was trying to get out of there to graduate from college so he could leave. And then there I was at 10, and I'm sitting up in the middle of the night asking him all the questions of the universe.
And he got to
Why is this? And he had to answer them. So that male voice in my head that answers the questions in the universe is him.
That's awesome.
And,
so tell me about your passion for filmmaking, and where does that come from in you? What is it about you that drew you to that as your craft?
Storytelling, the opportunity to be able to tell people stories, and I found them to be fascinating. Initially, as a storyteller, I loved to draw, I loved to paint, I loved music, I loved dance and all forms of expression. And then I really got into journalism in college, but then I pivoted into being able to tell the story visually as well. And I found that to be an amazing power to have because I'm a kid that grew up in the MTV generation, and so everything became extraordinarily visual at that time. So the world of journalism was declining, and this whole world of visual expression was growing, and I just sort of matriculated into it.
And what is it about storytelling that right now gets you up in the morning? What is it? Do you have stories you want to tell? What is it that you want to be remembered for in your storytelling?
Is the ability to unpack the universe, is to be able to be a solution-based artist that says, hey, here's some interesting insight into how the world works and how we can think and be better as a group or race or country of people.
I love that. I think that's, I've now realized doing this podcast work that is an extremely important piece, right? Is to allow people, is to question things and have them embrace the questioning and then educate them and elevate them through that process. I love that.
Yeah, and that's something that's been around for 100 years, 100 years, and there's all these great artists of all different backgrounds that have been doing this forever, and I love those people.
Speaking of 100 years, Is That Black Enough, right? The Netflix special, Elvis Mitchell. Amazing piece that has come out, and I in watching that, there's a lot of learning in there. If you aren't as familiar as I wasn't as familiar in Black filmmaking. But then in addition, you have Disclosure, which was an interesting piece on the trans experience. And I found that both of them, you kind of see this storytelling of old juxtaposed, and you kind of watch the progression of storytelling move things forward. Is that the kind of history retelling that you're trying to do, and not retelling, but you're going to move history forward with what you seek to put on film?
Absolutely. I mean, there is a certain amount of retelling that's in there as well, because as within the LGBTQ community or the gay community, the narrative's been all wrong. We've learned all the wrong things about people in these communities, and especially when you're talking about the transgender community as well. And the Black community is a really good example of that. We have a lot of falsehoods in our culture in America. Indians run around and they scalped everybody, which we now know is not true. And there's all of these tropes and all of these different cultures that have been maligned, that you're trying to rewrite the narrative and get things back on course so future generations can know the truth, so they can be better, higher functioning people.
Yeah, because let's be real, I think the individual, I sat there and watching both pieces as you sit, imagining yourself as sitting behind the eyes of a Black individual watching some of those movies, or a trans individual watching these movies. They're these huge, tremendous obstacles to self-love and self-respect.
Completely. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, that's part of the magic of what we're doing with what we're creating now on film, which kind of moves us forward to your piece on J-setting.
Yes.
So J-setting, tell our audience a little bit what J-setting is, what its background is, in case they aren't aware.
J-setting is a form of dance. J-setting was initially something that was created on the campuses of HBCUs, historically black colleges, and specifically Jackson State University, which is in Jackson, Mississippi. Now, a lot of the focus of this was on the majorettes, those dazzling, wonderful women that you see doing the steps and all of the other funky stuff. And so they were combining that with a lot of urban street dance and a lot of classical Alvin Ailey types of dance moves as well. And the interesting part about it, what sort of got it going, was the gay male population, because they would sit off on the sidelines and say, I want to be a majorette and I want to be out there.
I know,
in front.
right?
Totally. They want to participate in that.
I want to be a cheerleader.
Exactly. And that's originally where the energy came from. Yeah. I want to be a cheerleader. And then they said, you know, we're going to go do our own thing. We're going to hijack these dance moves and we're going to turn them into our own thing. And we're going to be our own best cheerleaders. So that's basically what J-setting is. It's cheerleading in a way. But it is non-binary. And it allows both bio-gendered people to participate in it as well. And they can exchange moves that cross along gender lines. Because so much dance is compartmentalized into specific genders. These are male dance moves. These are female dance moves. In J-setting, everything is sort of meshing and blending together into this non-binary future world of interaction between the genders, which is fascinating.
It's extremely fascinating. So there's a couple things, right? So when you watch it, there is that part of you that wants, as a gay man, you're like, God, I want to just look that fabulous. It is regal. It's refined. I would suggest. It's athletic. Those people look like they are spending.
They're incredibly athletic.
Incredibly. But the non-binary is. If you haven't explored non-binary, it's almost like you're looking at it and you're fascinated by it, and there's some element of repulsion too, because you're like, am I comfortable enough? Could I do that? Could I swing it that way? Could I shake it that way? Because it's really would force you to drop some of those barriers inside yourself.
Completely. And dance has been doing that for thousands and thousands of years. It has been a cultural expression in every culture around the globe. So as the globe comes closer together and we are just one giant village, why would not there be another form of dance that would come through that helps to pull us to a higher level once again? You know, life always punches through in spite of the chaos, and that's a big part of what J-setting is all about. It's the next evolution of how we express ourselves through dance. And once again, it's uniquely Afrocentric, but it's not. Hip hop, it's the next step. What's beyond hip hop in that hyper masculine world that we've been so used to for 30, 40 years? It's this non-binary world of expression as well. So J-setting is going to lead to things such as new forms of music and rap and singing and dancing and all this other stuff. J-setting's only getting started.
Yeah, it reminds me, or it's akin to, there are aspects of it that reminded me of the voguing, right?
Absolutely.
That came from Black culture again.
Ballroom,
right?
In New York,
So one of the things about the attraction and the fear a bit of the non-binary that exists. We were talking earlier about how you had straight individuals who said they both wanted to do it and were a little bit intimidated by it. Is that something you've consistently found, gay or straight, that same feedback?
Absolutely, because of the energy that's there. It's like, oh my God, I can't do that. Oh my God, that's so athletic. Oh my God, that's just beyond my capabilities. And that's not true. It's just, do you want to commit to something like that? Do you want to have the discipline in order to get there and to be able to participate in it as well? People must have felt the same way about watching jazz artists in the beginning as well. Or Little Richard used to talk about it all the time because he was just so incredibly high energy and fabulous, and no one has ever been able to replicate that. You know, I mean, you know, Bruno Mars, it's cute for a second, but you're no Little Richard, okay? So, you know what I mean? There's something about it that he said people don't want to commit to being disciplined enough to being able to do it. And that's just something that's sort of inherent of people. But, you know, J-setting challenges someone to find their better or greater self as well. And they can do it if they really want to do it or focus on it.
I noticed that one of the pieces of early in the set, one of the individuals talks about you really have to know yourself to do
there
this.
You go.
What was that thread?
That's the gateway or the tear in the universe that gets you to the other side of the universe, is like, know thyself. That's the thing that people say all the time, over and over and over again, throughout your existence and throughout time and space. In order to succeed and be great, you must know who you are in order to be able to share with the rest of the universe.
It looked to me like one of the things that appealed to me a lot about Jay setting is that I know that if I did it, I would learn a lot about myself. A lot. You can tell that watching the dancers, besides their amazing outfits, which I feel like anyone would love to look amazing.
Exactly.
They've got beautiful bodies and beautiful moves. One of the other things that the piece talked about, and this is the short for which Fr3der won the Emmy. There is a component where they talk about rejection from their own Black community. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about that and putting that on a piece of film.
That was probably the hardest part about doing the piece. It wasn't even the dancing, it was listening to them talk about their backstory and what they've come from and what they continue to have to battle on a day-to-day basis. And this rejection comes from, at times, their own community. And at times they feel marginalized in the gay community as well. They kind of feel like, well, people like white gay men better than they do Black gay men. That was something else that I had learned in this particular journey as well. Unfortunately, I kind of stereotyped it as they're all gay men and people either love them or people don't like them. And then it's a little bit fractured within the gay community as well. A lot of gay Black men do not feel like they get equal time in the gay community, and that's been a big point of frustration as well.
They don't. I had a good Black friend, gay friend. We were at an event that was mostly white, and he said, "Have you heard of the 12% rule?" And I was like, "What's the 12% rule?" He's like, "Yeah, you get to write about 12%, and everyone's okay. But when we go over 12%, the white men are going to start leaving because it's too Black for them." And I was horrified to hear that. Yeah. But you realize that one of the things I always say is if the gay community can figure out how to embrace itself, we'll be leaders for the rest of the community, because there is no nation that was not blessed with gay. And because of that, there's a small group sampling, right? We've got to figure this out because the rest of the world needs us to.
Exactly.
All right, so I kind of down that same path. There was a really good documentary that was at the Allen Film Festival, Black as You Are by Michael Eric. And he was exploring this concept of the other, where all Black lives matter. But his comment was, some Black lives don't matter as much because queer is still the other within the Black community. And is Jay setting a way for this group to find community, or do they feel like this could be a way for them to gain more acceptance?
They have a community. They want to be able to reach into these other communities and have strategic partnerships with these other communities, because they know that for them to grow, they need to attach themselves to other communities. And that's been one of the intrinsic problems here, is that they've always been sort of pushed out onto the side or the peripherals of society and marginalized. And they know for them to be able to thrive moving forward as a community, they need to be a part of society as a whole.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, and curious, do you know if they are taking new people? Will they embrace
others?
Of course, yeah.
Okay,
so if you are a listener and you're watching this and you have interest, because it's pretty fascinating, you can take part and learn about it. They actually have competitions you learn about when you watch the piece, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think it is something that could spread, or at least in our society.
Oh, I think so. I mean, Beyonce has been stealing some of the Jay setting moves. I'm not going to lie. Apparently there's the myth.
She's the new Madonna, stealing the moves.
Something. The answer to that is yes. I'm gonna go out on a limb here officially and say yes. She has sort of taken that mantle from Madonna when it comes to song and dance on the female side of things.
Well, particularly her last album, and how much it appeals to black, gay, trans.
Exactly. And that was, Madonna did that. And it just injected something into her career that just lifted her to a whole nother level. As the Prince, Michael Jackson, 80s era started fizzling, she became even more powerful in the 90s because of this. Yeah, if she had not integrated the gay culture into her act, she would be gone.
Yep.
And, Beyonce is doing the same thing. I think it's a tremendous formula for success. If only Diana Ross had done it.
I know.
Oh,
but she did so many other
She did so many other things.
Things.
Right.
So I am curious, too, we talked a little bit about the passion for the black man and the black gay man specifically that you feel like Jay Setting brings home. What is it about the black gay male experience do you feel that you've learned about that you want to touch and help with what you did?
I think the biggest thing that I want to be able to do is to let black gay males know that they're loved and that people really do care about them, and that in spite of all these things that you see and the numbers and HIV and being brutalized by the system and law enforcement and things like that, that there are people out there that really do love them and think about them on a day-to-day basis and want to do things to make their lives better.
Yeah. I was thinking on a scene, there's a scene in Black As You Are where a straight young black man is talking about embracing black queer culture. And as you as a straight black man and Mike, I think that people in the audience were moved to tears. Right, because it was so heartwarming for these black queer individuals to see a black straight man embracing them and loving them. And if you think about our points of privilege, I talk about this often, but those of us who sit in privilege, if you're straight, if you're white or white looking, if you're a male, etc., like it is our obligation to be sensitive to the fact that you stand in privilege and you have an opportunity. And I'm glad that you are doing that with your work. And I'm certain that these young gay individuals or old gay individuals are being uplifted by your work. And I'm certain that your uncle will be proud of you.
Thank you. I have a picture of him that sits on my desk, and I think about that every day. And I realize it sometimes when these young people will come up to me, that I worked with on the film and stuff like that, and I haven't seen them in a few weeks or a couple of months, and they're so excited to see me, and they come up to me and they're like, "Hey, Fred, how are you?" They're being very open, and outward and forthright, and it's such a special dynamic moment as well, because I realize how hard that can be for them sometimes to trust.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that they trust me.
Yeah. It's I will tell you, if you are an ally, if you know a straight man, there's something very validating about the straight to gay experience. For all the gay men I know who have close straight male friends, it's very validating, and I think the same is true for females as well. And really for any queer person.
Absolutely. I mean, the secret to happiness in the gay community, a big part of that is the love and acceptance that people in the straight community can give as well. Like people just don't understand affirmation is a part of our existence as human beings. I mean, we can say all day long, I don't care what other people like, I don't care what other people think. Well, we kind of do sometimes, and we want people to love us, and we want people to think that we're okay and that we're special and that we belong. And we don't have enough of that goes on in our world right now, as we all very well know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's even like I think about the Ukraine and things like that, and and I just wish I could do something. Or when I meet someone that's Ukrainian, I actually go out of my way. I'm a little bit extra, trying to be.
You're just trying to reach out.
Exactly, and trying to be kind or polite or respectful, or hey, I gotta buy you a beer, or but even it's just the little things, or just if they want to talk about it, I listen.
It's a sensitivity.
Exactly.
So let's talk about where you see the future of what we need to see first.
Sure.
Like when you think of what's next, what do we see more of in film, and what would you like to see more of in regards and tied to the J setting work that you did?
The answer is everything. The future is non-binary. I would love to see more and more films and content that are operating in this non-binary space, and that we slowly start to do away with these extremes of gender identity, the hyper-masculine male or the effemitized female, the helpless female, the dingy female that can't do anything, the weak
woman.
The weak woman that is just completely and totally over-sexualized, and, you know, it needs this hyper male who's over-sexualized to protect and bring them together and all of this. Like, I'm done with that. And then the incorporation of the transgendered community into the diaspora of how we live our lives. I mean, I want to see more films and television shows where, hey, there's a transgendered person in the show, and guess what? They're in the show. Okay, and now on with the story. You know, we're not just hyper focused on it as well. And then could we get to the point where we could have a straight cisgendered person that falls in love with a transgendered person? Because those things happen in real life.
And there's a little cute, was it a UK documentary or a UK show, I think, that did that, explored that a little bit. But you're right.
Yeah.
Where it's almost like just it's normalized.
It's normalized, exactly.
All of that. I think it's about telling the stories of the world that could be. And
I think that that's the most important thing, because we've gotten into this loop, this hyper loop of we only want to tell the stories of as is. This is real. This is what's really happening. This is reality or whatever. But the generations before, our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents in cinema and television, they always talked about what could be.
Yeah.
You know, but for whatever reason, in this past 20, 25, 30 years, it's always about like, this is just how it is and you just got to live with it and that's it. It's like, no, I don't want to live with it. I want to see things as they really can be. Can a gay person be the president of the United States? Absolutely. So I want to see that. I want to see that in a film, and I want to see that portrayed. And guess what? Maybe in a couple years, we've got somebody out there that might be running for president in 2024. And I want people primed to be able to believe that as a possibility. You have to dream it before it happens.
You do.
Yeah.
And I actually believe, you know, and I would ask you and hope for you that, you know, the ability to help the global conscience to manifest its future is something that filmmakers have an opportunity to do. That I think, you know, I think of the world that we want to be. I'm disheartened sometimes when I have conversations here in the U.S. around people who lack hope because, you know, the media, which is a extreme form of, you know, there's a lot of filmmaking that's going on there. You hear those extreme messages and you almost lose hope. You're like, well, how are we going to overcome, you know, the gap between billionaires and the rest of us, or this racial hate that's still sitting out there? And it's like, we need to start seeing hope. You know, I would like to see more hope.
I would too, and I would like to see it projected into the future and future generations and beyond our time in this world as well. I want to see it for everyone, and even for people that are older as well. I mean, in the elderly or the aging population in the gay community is another really serious issue. Yeah. You know, that they're oddly at times forgotten. And I would like to see more portrayed in that space. We don't see enough films about old gay couples and what they go through and what they do. And
we don't. Like, and, you know, another aspect that I feel like is missing. So you think about, you think about those original mostly Black trans women who became family leaders, right, in New York, that kind of sat behind what we know of as gay culture in those beginning times. Like that is a potential reality for all of us in the community, meaning across gay, across trans, across lesbian. That's why we try to do on the Gaily Dose, is try to show an integration across the letters, because that is the world in which you have, you know, chosen families.
Sure.
Right? I love all that.
me too. And it is, and it's oh God, integration. Oh, there's a novel idea. Yeah. There's an interesting word.
Or inclusion.
Or inclusion and integration, all of the above. And I think the more we have of that in all aspects of our society, the better off we're going to be. The only thing we are is diverse. That's it. That's who we are as a culture. We know this. Every day we get up, we go and we walk around outside. We see so many different types and kinds of people all the time. You know, we've got to drive way out to the sticks before everything starts to really homogenize, and then it still doesn't, because then someone gay walks by, or then there's a black person, and there's a Latin person, there's an Asian person. It's just like it doesn't exist anymore in this country where we have these pockets of people and they're all the same and they all think and walk and talk and believe the same thing. Yeah, we're done with that.
Unfortunately, I think there are people who still choose that, and I'm okay.
How are they doing these days?
Well, they're struggling. I think they're struggling a lot. But I will say, I think as I say this as a father of, 20-somethings and teens, they're looking to have hope. I think they look at some of the leadership, meaning the elderly. Some of them aren't giving them a lot of hope. So I think it's your opportunity and the other filmmakers out there to make people have some hope for where we're going. Tell me what is next for you.
Wow. What is next for me is to continue down this path of creating interesting programming in the LGBTQ community. It is challenging to create hope as well, because there are so many roads and stumbling blocks, not only in the system, but also with some of the individuals as well, because they fear reprisal from society. I mean, people are mean to people who are different, and so it creates fear, and then they have this propensity towards trying to sort of slip in under the radar, and that's something that doesn't last too long, because you are your most greatest self when you are yourself. And so it's really important to be able to teach people to do that. So that creates some problems in saying, hey, I'm going to go do this film about a gay kid or a transgender kid or whatever, because it's like, we really don't want to talk about it. We're just kind of hiding out over here. We're not going to really get in there. And it's giving people the courage to be able to get out there and do something about it. But for them to have the courage, they need the information as well, to know that there will be people there for them that have their back as well. And then I'm just doing other things in general. I'm still doing a lot of social justice stuff, but the thing that I'm really moving towards now is pivoting into scripted.
Okay.
Because the documentary stuff just doesn't have enough bite with it to really get people to see things and move towards hope like you're talking about. People want to see characters and people talking and acting and script, and Ryan Murphy's making a killing doing it, because he just keeps doing these stories about interesting people, and I think that's really the path that we're going down now, as far as trying to have a huge impact. Documentaries are great, they kind of set the table, but documentaries, for better or for worse, however you want to think about it, they're not the full entree or the full the big meal. The big meal is the big film. Like Wakanda has just made $1 gazillion in like 3 hours. So that's the world that's the world we live in.
You're right, in that the documentary is just telling you what the now is.
Sure.
Right. And you're right. If you can take that scripted piece and you can really tell the story of what the future can be or could be, or you explore more in depth. Yeah. So I hope you have a lot of fun with that.
Me too. I'm looking forward to it. Exactly. And then you get to control, you're the master of the universe. Then you can bring all of these different people in of different backgrounds as well. And then you can have that transgendered person that's magically a part of the mix. And guess what? They're just magically a part of the mix.
True. Well, hey, we hope that you've enjoyed this. We are going to switch now to our call to Kiki.
Dolls everywhere unite. It's the call to Kiki.
All right, so reminder, dolls, our call to Kiki is our segment where we kind of spend a little time just reflecting. As we've spoken through all these different topics with Frederick today, we're going to reflect a little bit on what we can do from this. So I'm going to ask you, of all that we talked about, what is it that gets you the most excited?
People. And people with great energy that want to move forward and they want to get to higher ground. Those are the people that I get the most excited about. Those are the people that I want to get in there and help and do whatever I can for as well. And those are the people that inspire me as well. I have a mentor, and he always taught me, trust your instincts and you'll never be wrong. So I get excited about people that love their instincts and they go on their instincts. And then no is the most powerful word in the universe. And so I get really excited about people that have the ability to stand up and say no.
Oh, no, say no. That's a boundary.
That's a boundary, exactly. Okay. They're willing to accept what the outcome of that is too, and they are willing to work to get to a higher level beyond that no, rather than caving and saying yes, and then ruining their life to some other bleep hole out there that's trying to control them.
Yeah.
I gotta say no sometimes.
Yeah, you do have to say no sometimes. I was gonna say that I thought you might mean no, like no K-N-O-W, because I was gonna say I'm really inspired to go watch more film and watch things that make me feel a little bit uncomfortable. Because there's so much to learn about each other. And I talked about sort of going with your inclusion, normalizing inclusion, seeking to understand what's behind the eyes of the other people that aren't like us.
Sure.
is exciting to me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to thank you for joining us. I want to thank you, listeners, for taking the time to expand your mind. And hopefully we've touched on a few things that have helped you think about the world differently, and ultimately help you love yourself more and love others. And as always, we remind you here on the Daily Dose to actively pursue those two things. And don't forget to smile. We love you. Bye.